Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third in our fall series of USAFL webinars. My name is Dorian James. I'm the Executive Director of the USAFL. Our webinar tonight features the USAFL men's national team, the Revolution. And we're going to be hearing from head coach Tom Ellis, current player John Freeman, and former player Andy Vanica about the Revolution. He'll be speaking about the Revolution Hall of Fame. And we're going to gain some insights into the history of the Rebos, current status of the program in light of the International Cup being canceled this year, and see what lies ahead for the Rebos in 21 and beyond. If you have any questions tonight, just ask you please use the Q&A feature. You'll find that down the bottom below the video. Click on there and submit whatever questions you have through there. And we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can at the end. Each speaker is going to go through and present, and then we'll tackle the questions afterwards at the end. And I believe Tom also has some trivia questions, so we'll use the Q&A feature for that as well. And we're scheduled for 1 hour, so we're going to do our best to stick to that schedule. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand things over to Tom.
Perfect. First of all, I just want to thank Doran for setting this up and doing something footy related finally after this long, awful break that we've taken. Honestly, the last normal thing I did was go down to Houston for the Cup camp that we had down there. And I remember getting back on the plane and I saw one guy with a mask on. I was like, what's that all about? And now here we are, 6, 8 months later, and it kind of took over our lives. So I'm really happy. Thank you for doing that, Doran, getting this thing going. Hopefully everybody out there is doing well. I know a lot of families up and down with this thing. I've had a lot of my family members catch it. People have different responses to it and things. So hopefully we can all just get through this at some point and get back to playing the game that we all really like. I'm going to go through this here pretty quick on a few different things. We'll try to get through it so we can get to the very end, and then we can open this up for questions, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that have questions, and we'll just get to that. But we're going to go through a bit of our part before that. First, I'll just introduce myself to those that don't know me. Tom Ellis. I'm probably a cross between Ted Lasso and Bear Bryant, somewhere in that mix. I was just like the rest of everybody that I've coached. I played high school football. I played every sport you could think of. Growing up, basketball, ran track. I went to college and on track scholarship and pole vault, and then after college, went and played semi-pro football. Just anything you could do to keep that athletic competition alive. And then that's when I found Australian football. I'd seen it a little bit back in the 80s, and it was always something kind of interesting on the outside edge. And once I played that first game, I was hooked. Started playing in '99. Played on the USA team in 2000, the first time we went to Canada. From there, played on the USA team for 5 years, didn't miss an event for 6 years. Coached the USA team for the first time in '06 in LA. After that, I started coaching the Bulldog team. As a player, I've got 7 national titles at the D1 level, 3 national titles as a coach at the D1 level. And but probably the best thing I ever did was just get involved with the Revolution. Playing with USA across your chest is unbelievable. And coaching at the last Cup was probably the most surreal thing I've ever done. To see Kevin Sheedy there, who I saw back in 2002 for the first time, was pretty ridiculous. And see him watching me coach after 20 years of this has been really, really crazy. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm going to go through some of the other coaches as we get going. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Revolution is, right? The basic, easiest answer is it's the Team USA. That's what we are. We're Team USA. But on top of that, it's much bigger. We want to be the team that builds a pipeline into the AFL. That's what we want to be. We want to be a pipeline for elite athletes to come through and make it to the AFL at some point. That's what the Revolution should be. We are always looking for talent. We're always looking to push that level to the next level. I'm going to let you talk. John Freeman is going to talk to us. He was one of the first guys that came on board and only knew me as the coach. He's one of those guys that pushed us to the next elite level. When you got a guy that comes in and can get to a 15 on the beat test to push us to an AFL type level, it took us to a whole new level fitness wise, and we were real happy to have him on board with us. So John, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about your experience?
Sure, and happy to be on and head down memory lane and just be able to talk about footy a little bit. Miss having played it this year, but and certainly heartbroken for all the guys that were going to the International Cup this year and would probably still be licking their wounds from it if it had actually happened. And Coach asked me to get on it and talk about my experience. I understand there's maybe a fair amount of people who are either watching this live now, have questions, or may see this in the future when it's posted. My experience is a very brief one, to be honest. I picked up footy in April of 2016 and then was playing in the International Cup in August of 2017. I played my club football for the Nashville Kangaroos. And I have a bit of a unique path just because the Kangaroos are one of the smaller clubs in the USAFL. And I think I'm a pretty good example of how inclusive USAFL and how inclusive the Revolution are because I don't play for a big club. I didn't have connections and was still able to find myself on the Revolution roster. And I think that comes down to a lot of the process that's been set up and how that the Revolution scout for players. I first saw Coach at, like my second ever game, the regional tournament in Indianapolis where he was scouting. The coaching staff does a wonderful job of communicating out to potential players, to including them in camps, to making it really an open tryout for the entire country. So if you're from a small club or you're even just picking it up now, honestly, there's nothing that could keep you from being part of this Revolution squad going forward if you put enough into it. Just personal experience and perspective and maybe a little advice to anybody who's considering joining the Revolution and attempting to make it to the next International Cup and whenever that may be. You really get what you give with the Revolution. The more you put into this process and enjoy the process, whether it's changing your diet or working on your fitness or mastering some of the skills or dragging your teammates out in the winter when it's dark just to kick the football around to chase this dream of going to Australia, you will increase your chances of being able to not only experience it, but really, really enjoy the International Cup or playing for the Revolution and some other competitions. But you really can't just stumble into it. You have to work for it. And I've seen that with my teammates that I played with. I've seen that with the roster that was being built for the International Cup. These are a bunch of guys that didn't stumble into playing for the Revolution. They certainly went out and earned it. As far as the actual International Cup experience, one of the best of my life. Something I'll remember forever. I think I speak for a lot of people on this call, and we all played competitive sports, and the only thing that went away was the sports, not the competitiveness. And we were all competitors, and to be able to go and compete at that highest level and at such an intense level, where you're selling out on every single play, every single day, every single training, every single test even be included in the team, it's rewarding. And I would think that anybody who's on this call thinking about making that journey, you got to compete. You really, really got to like competing because sports at that level it only takes the most competitive people. There's no real laid back players on our team when it came to game day. Just some highlights of the trip. Man, just being in a locker room with guys before a game, We're playing PNG, and there's maybe 1,000 or 2 people there, driving on that bus up to the field in Montrose, which is a suburb of Melbourne. And I distinctly remember having a window seat and just looking out, and there were like people tailgating, their cars. They had to move cars and people out of the way to get us to our locker room. That's an experience that not a lot of adults in this country, even get in their lifetimes. And, if you're thinking about selling out to join this team, that's something that should drive you on those cold runs in the dark. Hearing your anthem is an incredible experience. Wrapping your arms around your teammates while you do it is even better. Having PNG players do a haka in your face after that anthem is certainly something that you don't experience too often. But more than anything, I think there's something really unique about playing for your country and representing your country, and also just being around in a team way of people from around your country. And it's 7:12 Central Time. There's going to be a debate on national TV in less than an hour. And I think if you lined up, our 30 players on our roster in USAFL, you'd have 15 on one side and 15 on the other when it goes down to, how they feel about this debate. And it's not something we ever talked about. It's not something that mattered when we were there, and we all got along. We all had one common goal. And, there's people that, I'll be communicating with for the rest of my life, probably on that team, that we may even have some differences. And that to me is one of the great things about representing your country, playing this sport, and this program in particular. So full recommendation to anybody who wants to go for it. The only piece of advice I have, if you do choose to pursue the Revolution dream, is just accept what it needs. It needs full commitment, physically, mentally. It needs commitment from your club, from your teammates, helping you get to where you want to go, your significant other, if you have one, letting you travel, commit resources to chasing this. You also have to have a job that allows you to take the time. So we're in a pretty good spot now where you can start aligning those things and setting the expectations and developing a plan if this is something you really want to pursue. And I hope my words have at least convinced you that it is something that you want to go down and try.
John, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
That was excellent. Could not ask for a better teammate and a better player, and I'm just really, really happy that we had you on. Just so you guys understand, John was one of those guys at the very end of the PNG game when we had lost, and it was a very big kick in the gut. He's still kicking goals at the end of the game with about 30 seconds left. He's still putting everything he had on the line. And that was one of the highlights of the tournament for me, was to watch that part at the very, very end of PNG. So I appreciate John and all he does. All right. Now I'm going to go through some of the coaching staff that we have with the Revolution, and we'll kind of go through that so you get a feel for that. But before that, we're going to kind of kick off a little bit. So the guys that are on this call right now, you've got an opportunity to win a little beanie, Revolution beanie. I'll send this to you. The first question, some of you guys should know this, is can you name the player who kicked the first ever goal in International Cup history? So I'm sure somebody knows that answer. I've brought that up a couple times before. You cannot answer that.
I can't?
No, you can't.
I wasn't there, though.
So I'm sure somebody will be getting that beanie shortly.
I'll just say, if you don't know the answer, he will be sure to tell you in one of his first conversations when you meet him.
Yes, that's exactly correct. One of the guys that we have with us that's been around a long time is Dan Sauerbacker. So he's our assistant coach. He started playing with the Revolution in 2003. He's one of the first guys that I saw on the field that could just outrun circles around me, and I was like, well, that guy's got some speed. And he played for a long time. Captained the team in 11. He's been coaching. He coaches at soccer at a pretty high level. He went to college with soccer and track. He's one of the smartest guys that we have on all of USAFL. He's one of the smartest guys we could get. He also, sacrificed a little bit of his life, went over and played in Australia to enhance his game. And I'm just really, really lucky that he's still involved with the team. He's got young kids. And to be able to keep him with the squad has been big. So Dan Sauerbacker, if you don't know him, then you just haven't been playing very long. Another coach is Jason Becker. So everybody knows Bex. He was one of the first guys I met in 2000 playing with the USA team. We've been around together a long time, and I was really, really happy that he stuck around with me once we made this transition in 2015. Again, a real smart guy, knows his stuff. He knows if there's something he doesn't know, he's going to go find out. He's not at all shy about going out and finding out the answers. And he coached 2 different teams at the USAFL level. People don't know it, but he's still trying to get on with the Lions as a mascot. So that could happen. I don't know yet. But the Brisbane Lions, he's still in talks trying to get that mascot job. Dustin Jones, he's going to be coaching. He was going to coach a team to go to Europe next year. We're not sure what's happening at this point. Dustin was my first roommate in 2000. So when we went to Canada and went up there and smashed them, he was first guy I was rooming with. I think he was 19 at the time. He ended up being a player that was chosen to go and train with Essendon for 6 months. He went over there and got to live and breathe as an AFLer in their preseason. And he is one of the best midfield guys you'll ever see play at the USAFL level. Even as he's gotten older, he can still play, just probably lost a step here and there like the rest of us do. He's down in Florida, but depending on what happens with this COVID, then we can possibly be going to Europe, but he's going to be coaching. And at some point, I'm hoping he'll be taking a head coaching job along the lines as we keep developing. Kyle Striske, he is a player that also was from that 2000 team in Canada. Known him for a long time. We went to Europe together for the first time in 2001. Solid player, still playing, still coaching. He's been around with Cincinnati for a long, long time. He's going to be taking a team at this point to Croatia. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. We were supposed to go this year in April. It didn't happen, obviously, and then we're hoping to take him, or he's going to take that team this year. Justin Valley's going to help assist him in that group. He's going to be an assistant coach. Again, another longtime Revolution player. I think I started playing against him probably in 04, 05, playing with San Diego at that point. I know he's in Lehigh. He's a good friend with Dustin. And I see a bright future with him with the Revolution coaching staff. Brad Anderson was our manager at last Cup. He was helping us on this Cup, and with everything that fell apart, he's now moving back to Australia. He'll still be involved with us on some level. We don't know exactly what yet once things pan themselves out. Ryan Cartwright is going to be the team manager for that squad going to Croatia. Ryan was trying out. He was a really good track runner back in the day. He definitely helped with the fitness side of pushing guys at the last tryout. And he's setting up everything over in Croatia. We're really happy to have him doing that. And then Steve Budrick was our trainer. He's been the trainer forever with the Revolution. We'll see how this all comes out. I think he missed one event in the last 17 years, 18, 20 years. I'm not even sure. He's always been around. He's been a big help. And a lot of guys wouldn't make it if it wasn't for him being around all the time helping us out on the games. The Revolution, like talking earlier about how we're developing players, the other part of this is, and after I've gone through that list, all these coaches, they're all ex-Revolution players. That's what we're trying to develop. We're not only just trying to develop players, we're trying to develop coaches. We're trying to develop team managers. To be able to take a squad of guys from all across the country that don't know each other, get them on a plane and go to another country for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks takes an enormous amount of knowledge and skill to make that happen without having too much issue. So we're going to continually develop that stuff as we go. The other part that we're going to start focusing on now that we're in this situation is we're going to be reaching out for social media managers. We're looking at a sponsorship manager role, looking at scouts, regional scouts across the league for the Revolution, and then each team having a Revolution appointed point man at each team. These are all things that we're working on now that we were going to start implementing this year. Obviously, with the teams, it didn't happen, but we'll be implementing all of that with this next round as we move forward into 2021 as a playing group. So, on the history of the Revolution, before I get too much into that, I'm going to cut over to Andy, let him talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame, and then also a little bit about his experience with the Revolution. Go ahead, Andy.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks to Doran and the USAFL for putting this on, and just the opportunity to talk about my experience and what I'm still trying to do for the club. Tom mentioned the Hall of Fame. So we launched the Revolution Hall of Fame at the last Cup cycle. So we've had one set of inductees, and I think we inducted about 7 or 8 people from the first kind of 10 years of the program. And the plan moving forward is to have a new class every 3 years for every Cup year. So we are, nominations are currently being taken through a Google form. You can find the information on the USAFL website in the press release to nominate a former player or person who is involved in the program. The idea is to just keep ties with the history and the past players. I think Tom's done a great job of building the connections between the current group and the legacy group. And as we all grow older, we all want to contribute to this amazing program that we are able to partake in. So I think, there are two folds to the purpose of the Hall of Fame. It's one, to recognize those who move the program forward, but then also keep a connection to the past, help the past support the current playing group. Because a big hurdle with this trip is it's all on our own dime is the resources and money for making that happen. So I think there's a big resource available in former players that can certainly help out the current playing group. Now, as far as my experience, I want to just echo what John had to say. You get what you put out into it. I think that's just such a true statement. I was a part of the Revolution for 9 years. I didn't miss a single event in that time. I was a part of 6 or 7 parallel cups, the 08, the 2011, and 2014 squad. I left it all on the field, and you can see my jumpers are in my office here. So it is something that for those 9 years that I worked every single day, I sacrificed all those things John said that you put in to get out. I did that. I wanted to leave the program in a better spot than when I joined it. And even today, I'm 42, looking back on my career as a Revolution player, and I see this every single day when I walk into my office, and I think about it every single day, even 5 years on after my last Revolution game. Can tell you that being a part of this club will change your life. The friendships you'll make. I actually met my wife at the 2007 Parallel Cup. So if it wasn't for her being a part of the Freedom and me being a part of the Revolution, who knows if I would have met my current wife. So it literally can change your life. And then not to mention the friends and the bonds you have with your teammates. I can say that my Revolution connections are probably stronger than my club connections. And that goes back to getting out what you put in. I call on, ex-Revolution teammates every month or so and check in, and we're such a tight-knit group, even years after playing. And the experience of just looking back and representing the country and singing the song with your mates, the anthem before the game, singing the Revolution song after the game, after a win, the ice baths, the dips in the ocean, all these things that go into the trip are just memories that are priceless. And I'm 42. I'd love to be a part of it again if I could. And I'm here to support Tom and the program as best I can. So again, you get what you put into it. It's an amazing experience, and don't be shy. I had less than a year of experience showing up to my first camp, and John was the same. He started in 2016, made the squad for 2017, and I was in the same bucket. Showed up in 2007 at the Parallel Cup and made the squad in 2008. So you don't have to be a long-standing player in the league. You can be fresh to the sport. You just got to have that drive and desire to make an impact. And it's an amazing experience. So if I could rewind time, I'd go back and look to make the squad again.
Excellent. Andy, thank you very much for that. Taking the time out to give some of your thoughts on all this stuff. It's been fun watching all of you guys play after we left the program to see you guys step in. It's been fun, so I appreciate that you have the same desires that we do. All right, I'm gonna move on to a little bit of the history of the Revolution, just so people understand. Started in '99 when they took a group to Canada to play, or actually to Chicago to play a game. At that point, it had a few Australians in it because it was basically it was the USAFL at that point, or US Footy then. Paul Roos was the coach for that first game, and that it's pretty cool to think back that I've got more wins now than Paul Roos, so that's pretty sweet when it comes to USAFL history books. And honestly, Paul Roos was at the first practice I ever went to. I was in Denver, and my brother said, "Hey, come check this thing out." And I show up, and there's some guy out there teaching people how to handball. And it turned out it was Paul Roos at that point. He was doing a tour around the U.S. So going back to all the way back then, guys were getting to see things that a lot of Australians don't get to see. I mean, in the first cup, I had Alan Jeans come in and give a speech that just rocked the room, and we went out and just crushed Great Britain after that. And I'm a kid from Texas that played high school football in Texas, and that speech he gave blew away anything I ever heard, and it was just amazing to be part of. So it starts all the way back in '99. Then in 2000, we have the first real USA team that went up and played Canada in Toronto. That kicked off a whole 15 years of games against Canada. That was always an intense game. It never really mattered who was going to win or lose. We always knew it was going to be us. But it was always just brutal. It was always just a brutal game with Canada. We ended up going to Europe for the first time in 2001, right after 9/11. I know that was a special time for us to get there. And we never went back. It never worked out when we went back until a couple of years ago when we went back and we went to Ireland. And we hope to keep growing that, where we can make more trips over to Europe. Obviously we want to go to Croatia. We want to go over more and start getting more and more players involved on those levels as we can. All across the cup, the cup started, it's every 3 years. Every single cup, we've always had guys that make that all-world team. The next trivia question will be, name one of the first two Americans to make the all-world team. So we had two that made it in 2002. So you got to name one of those two to get a hat. And then after that, it was every year we had guys making the all-world team. And then at the last cup, we had Ben Carpenter. This is just one of the coolest things I ever saw was for him to be named to he was the all-world guy. He was the number one guy, and we were just thrilled for him. And we had Saleh was again on the All-World team. I think that was the second time that he made that list, and it was just awesome to see and to add that stuff to our history. And as we go, we want to see more guys on that in the Hall of Fame as we keep pushing things forward. We want to see guys after 5 years after they're done playing added to that list of the Hall of Fame, and we want to start having reunions and all of that kind of stuff that we can do as we push forward. So that's kind of a little bit of a quick history. There's so much more to it, and we'll keep adding to it as we go over the next few years. But we want guys that in the past that played, we want those guys coming back and filling us in on their part of the history. I know my part of the history. I know the other stuff. And we're going to have a place that these guys can come back and put photos and their stories, and we're going to add that to our history part of the Hall of Fame because we don't want to lose that as we move forward. So we're going to be pushing that over the next 5 years to really build that up. 2020. So I'll kind of go over where we left off at 2020. Like I said earlier, it was the last thing that we did that was normal. The coaches, we were coming down to the last few guys that we were going to put on our list, and it was getting really, really tough. The camp in Houston was fantastic. We had a lot of guys show up. Dave Bryant really helped us out. It was a really, really good camp down there at the University of Houston. We had some really good talent that I knew was good. Some of the coaches hadn't seen them yet. And then to see them compete against some of the older guys really blew the socks off of the coaches. And we were really optimistic about our chances. This was also the first year that we actually had to worry about having too many players living in Australia and playing. The limit was cut down to 8. We had never even gotten close to that number. And we had about 14 guys in Australia playing that we could look at to be on the squad. And we were going to have to cut that down to 8. And that's never been an issue, and now it is, which is fantastic. The first time we played against Ireland and New Zealand in that first cup, a lot of those guys were living in Australia. I mean, they had been living there a long, long time, playing in local leagues for a long, long time, and that was one of our disadvantages. Well, that's no longer the case for us. We were talking with Jason Holmes to come and play for us. Tragedy just makes me sick about Alex Riccio. He was going to be on our emergency list, and depending on how his season went, he was going to be possibly playing for us if his league was over. And his life was cut short in a tragic accident. It's a very sad moment for me when I heard that. Eric Wallace was on board, so we had Eric Wallace was going to come and join us. And we were also trying to get a couple of brand new Americans coming straight out of college D1 football programs, and we were trying to get them to the Lions. We were gonna send them up to the Brisbane Lions and have them work with them up until the Cup. And a lot of that, it just fell apart after the Cup or after the camp in February. But that's some of the things that we'll be doing as we move forward. We want guys coming straight out of college getting into some programs. As we do this, we will, depending on what the talent is, we will take guys straight out of college and get them tryouts with AFL teams. We'll get them to a state team. We can get them to lower level teams that they just want to play, but that's the pipeline that we're talking about. We want to get that pipeline going. 2021. Right now it's all limbo. We just don't know. But one thing we do know for sure is we're going to go to Croatia. That date is April 23rd through the 25th. Kyle's going to take a group. We'll do one of these meetings on its own about that trip in the next month or so. And we'll talk a little bit more about that then. But that's going to happen. Scenarios of what could happen, we might go to the Cup. We might do our own Cup. We might throw our own tournament. Depending on what happens. We're definitely going to have camps. what those camps look like right now, we don't know. We might do Revolution days at each club where we'll do some things, something like this, and then also go out on the field and have the coaches at that squad run the practice with our guidelines, depending on how all this works out. But that's right now at 2021, we just don't know. Hopefully we'll be able to pull the trigger on it soon so that we can get everything in order. In the meantime, I've got Jason Becker and Dan Sauerbacker are going to launch a pandemic program basically online. We're getting all of that set up now. We'll be putting that out in October, and we'll start working towards different goals as we move forward. I'm just real happy to have those guys helping with that. It's at least something that we can do that we are in control of. It's going to be pretty intense. We went through it the other day with those guys, and Jason and Dan have it well molded for what we're trying to do as a club as we move forward to the elite level. Our goal is to compete at an Australian level. We want to win the cup. That's number one. That's the first thing we want to do. But at some point, I want to go over and start beating Australian teams. That's what we need to be doing if we're going to move forward. We want to compete at the lower levels and be able to go and play against Australian teams and beat Australian teams. That's got to be the goal as we move forward. And I think some of the stuff that these guys have set as we do what we can do during this time to move forward with those goals. So look for that to be announced here soon, and we'll be able to get that out to a lot of players. You know, we can do things over the next 6 months viral over the internet if we have to. Whatever it takes, we'll make that happen. But I'm really excited to launch that pandemic program over the next month to get that rolling. And I know a lot of the guys are ready to get going. It's been real frustrating not knowing what to do. So at this point, we're just going to come together with our plan. We'll move forward and we'll adjust as we need to. There's going to be – we're basically scrubbing the website, and we'll be putting some new material on that. And there'll be a button there that you can – like if you've got a player that wants to be a Revolution, you can click that. There'll be a questionnaire, and we'll add all that. In the meantime, people can just email me. It's tom.ellis@usafl.com. You can just reach out to me, and we can do that now at this point, just get people on the list. But it won't be a problem at all as we get moving forward. We're going to be adding a lot of guys. Obviously, we want to go to Europe. We want to go to Canada. We want to go to Croatia. We want to send as many players, coaches, managers that we can over the next few years to really grow everything across the board. And so that is kind of where we are at this point. At this time, I think we've got about 15 minutes or so, and hopefully I've left enough time for some people to ask some questions. Doran, what is going to be the best way to do this?
So if you guys have questions, you can find the Q&A feature. It's down below the video. You can click on there and you just submit your questions through there, and we'll go ahead and tackle those as they come in.
And Sean's going to need to give me an email because he did get that right on Chad Martin. Chad Martin was one of the first guys for All World for the USA. So I'll get you I'll get the hat sent out to you, Sean.
Okay, awesome. So that was the second trivia question. So we're still looking for an answer for the first trivia question on who kicked the first goal in International Cup history. And
for the record, that's not International Cup history for the U.S. That's just overall.
Overall, right. Yes.
And it was an American, so.
Naturally. So I have a question, Tom, about just the process of picking a team. Can you kind of walk us through, what you guys go through and look for as coaches when you're looking to select a team, I guess, and just, how does that process begin, and what's the journey to selecting that team that does get picked to go to the International Cup?
Yeah, I'll just kind of go through it real quick. It's first thing, a lot of guys just put their hands up and let us know to look for them. That's what we look for at games when we're out scouting. If somebody tells us, hey, this guy's looking to get the squad, and just let us know where he is so we can get out and get our eyeballs on it. Second thing is you get to these camps. That's where we're really going to get our best looks at you, is at camps. We try to do them around regions so it's not too taxing on people. Like the first year, I think I had 6 camps. So normally what we do is 3 years out, we have a lot of camps. And then we have the 2 years out, we'll have like 2 to 3 camps. And we start getting more and more guys cajoled into that. And then you'll have, at that last year, we'll have one big camp to start narrowing people down. And this last year, we actually named 20 guys at the USA's nationals, and then we had another group of 8. There's going to be 8 to 12 guys that we were going to name for the next. So they got named, and then they had to come to that last camp so we could pick and choose from there. But it really does come down to getting to those camps after you put your hand up, and then we reach out to you and talk a bit. And there's a fitness test that we do that you have to, if you want to be on our squad, you got to at least hit a 12 on a beat test, and that's if you're a ruck. And these midfielders, John was a midfielder and a forward, and he ran a 15 beat test. I mean, so we're pushing AFL levels. But that's somewhat of how that process goes. It really does come down to getting in front of us, getting to those camps, and then making a show. Any other questions?
Okay, great. So really, if someone's interested, they should really just reach out to you, the coaching staff, and let you know of their interest, and then work with you on getting invited to a camp. Can you walk through what a typical camp looks like?
Yeah, normally we'll do a 3-day camp. So it's a Friday night. We usually do some video, introduce everybody, make sure everybody's there. Saturday we get right into some testing. Sometimes it'll be beat tests. It depends on what time of the year it is. A lot of it is decision-making type skills and things like that. And then Sunday we usually play a game. On those Saturday nights, we usually do a big team dinner, and we'll do a lot of video. We watch a lot of film on that Saturday night. We've gotten to the point too where we're starting to watch some film from the day's practice, where we'll pull up and look some practice from that day. And then on Sunday, then it's just competing. Then it's just usually some games. That's kind of been the format. It changes here and there depending. Sometimes you get busted with weather. I mean, we've been in Texas where we had an indoor facility and it rained the entire time, and we just had to stay indoors. So that there are things that we'll have to change, but that's the basics of it. Looks like.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I think you touched on this, I think, a little bit earlier, but Sean just asked, and I think you don't know the answer quite yet, but when is the next camp?
Yeah, it really depends on what happens with if we end up having the cup and they end up doing it in July or August, then that next camp is going to be for those 35 guys that were on that list. So the camp would be for that group. And then we would probably do another camp for the next group. So there'll be, depending on what the AFL's decision is. Now, if the AFL doesn't go forward with the cup, then we'll probably end up having 4 to 5 camps next year, and it'll be all over the country. So that's kind of where we're at with the camps.
Yeah, okay. And Tyler's got a question about fitness. And just plans for fitness in between competitions. Could you touch on that?
Yeah, that's going to be part of what we're doing on the pandemic program. We were going to launch a pretty intense fitness regimen at the last group, where we were going to have heart monitors and all that stuff, and we had somebody that was doing the coordinating for all that. It'll be the same type thing with this. Obviously, we're not going to be able to peak where we're at. We don't know when we're trying to peak. So we're gonna set some parameters that we're looking for. and that will be coming out at that pandemic program that we're setting up.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Guys, can you hear me? It's Dave Bryant here.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on a question for the clubs out there. How can clubs best support players that might have potential or show some interest at club level, particularly as we come back to footy next year? What can clubs be thinking about?
Well, let's use your club as an example. You guys did a really good job of getting some of those guys in front of us early. We saw what their abilities were. We talked a little bit about what they needed to work on to really have a shot at making that squad. And at the end of the day, you know, you had a player that nobody really had eyes on for a while that made that squad, that was going to make that squad. So that's a real good, you know, Houston's a great example of that. They had guys that were interested. They got them in front of us. They asked us what we thought about what their needs were and how to help them. And then Houston went and basically took those guys under their wing and pushed them right down the level to get to where they needed to be. So that's really what it takes. I can't coach them on a day-to-day basis. I have to look towards the league to help us coach these guys to get them to the level that we want. The biggest thing I can help with is, you know, telling you we're going to take the top guys. I don't care where they come from. I don't care if they're 2 weeks old of the game. If they can go in there and beat the guy that they're standing on, I'll take them. And that's what we've been looking for. So Houston was a great example. That's what we're looking to do.
So with that then, when the camps are announced, you're encouraging clubs to put forward candidates for those camps. Will they be open?
They will be open.
How will that go?
Yeah, once we open up the camp, once we know what the camps are going to be, then those camps are always open. And that's why we try to do them regionally. We try to spread it out so that, you know, we go somewhere in Texas so we get everybody from Texas in there. We'll go somewhere in Ohio so we get all those clubs, California. And we'll try to make it as easy as we can to get those players to a camp, get them in front of us so they understand the perimeters that we're looking for when it comes to testing, skill set, you know, what we want. So that will be open to everybody. And, you know, and I encourage coaches to come to that. I mean, I would love coaches to come to those events and just be on the sideline to see what we're doing with these guys so that they understand what they have to do when they go back. I think, you know, again, Dave, you did that, and I think it really helped pay off for those players. But, yeah, they will be open.
Great.
So we got a question from Logan, it looks like.
Yeah. So switch gears over a little bit to Logan's question here. What's considered the Revo style of play? If Collingwood, you know, is possession and kicking shorter, or is it, you know, more of a play on at all cost, Western Bulldogs, Richmond style? Yeah,
with the USA, what we try to do is we want to out-athlete the other teams. That's one of the things that we got that a lot of teams don't have is just the athletes and the level of athletes that we have. And you saw that in the last cup where, you know, when it came to man-on-man and things like that, we could just dominate some of these teams. The hard part with this revolution is that we never get to coach together as a group very often, that some of these guys are meeting each other at the cup or the first time they've actually kicked each other was at the cup. And it's really hard to have a long-term program when it comes to that. So what we try to do is we try to out-athlete people, and we try to make sure our fitness is up as high as it can. And then we're a run and gun. I mean, that's the way we look at it. When we have the ball, everybody's on offense, and when we don't, everybody's manned up. So it really is a run and gun type offense and defense at the same time. And that's why we have to be fit. You know, when you got 18 guys on the field that are all over a 13, 14 deep, we can run people to the ground. And that's kind of our whole outlook.
Yep. That's great. So a question, I could probably answer this one from Tyler about likelihood of the International Cup being moved to the end of 21. I don't think that's very likely from what I hear from the AFL. Be catching up with them again shortly, but previous conversations have been, the intent is to hold the Cup next year around the same time as scheduled for this year. So end of July, August timeframe is the goal. And so we have another question here from Sean. Going back to camps and just wondering, are there different camps for the development team? Or is it all just one camp for the whole program?
Yeah, normally it's a camp for the whole program because we only have a small amount of funding. And so on the off international cup years, we can only do so many camps where we can, pay for fields and get everybody to the facilities and get, trainers and have indoor facilities available in case of weather and all that. So we try to get everybody to those camps that we can. And then we can narrow guys down at their development, and then we'll kind of set them aside with the development side coaches, and then they'll start that program online going through that process.
A question on the Croatia trip. Has the team been finalized and selected for that trip?
Yes and no. We had everything pretty much ready to go at the end of, or in April of last year, and then it all fell apart. But we'll be putting something out on that in the next week or so, talking with Kyle, and we probably have some spots available, but we'll talk about that once we know what the decision's been made with the Cup.
Okay. So when you say, would that be spots for current Rebel players, or would there be a potential spot for somebody that maybe isn't currently part of the program?
Could be both. I mean, it just, like I said, it just depends. If the Cup goes on, then those guys aren't going to be going to Croatia, and there'll be probably some spots open there. But again, we'll have Kyle on. We'll be doing a webinar just with Kyle about this program later in the month.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Well, great. I think that's all the questions we have for right now. So this has been really, really good. Appreciate it. Do you have any closing comments, Tim?
No, I know you're going to record this. We're going to send this out to everybody. I encourage you guys that see this and you're interested in the Revolution, just get a hold of us. Let us know that you're interested. If you're an ex-Revolution player and you want to be involved in the coaching, get in touch with us. If you want to be helping managing, talk to us. Let us know what you want. If you've got a wife that's great at social media because you want to help, do it that way. I don't care. Anything that you want to do, come help. It's one of the questions every year. I sit down with each guy from the Cup and we have a one-on-one at the end of it. And I always ask them, at the end of the day, what do you want to do? Because at some point, this goes away. Father Time has never lost. He gets us all. And there's nothing worse than not being able to play. Trust me, there's nothing worse than not being able to play the sports the level you want to play. And the only thing that has kept me without just going crazy has been to be able to coach and try to develop guys that I know can play at a high level. And that's what I want from some of these guys. If you want to do something, come on, because we want you. We need everybody there. So if you want to get a hold of me again, it's tom.ellis@usafl.com. And I look forward from hearing from everybody that I can. We'll keep pushing this program until we get to that level where we're playing against Australian teams and playing them well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate it. Thank you to John and Andy for joining us as well and sharing your experience. It's great to hear from current and past players and how special and unique this program and opportunity really is. So thank you guys. And it's great to hear there's some really exciting things in store for the Revolution. So really looking forward to seeing how how next year shapes up and the opportunities that are on the horizon. As Tom mentioned, we are recording this, so it will be available on our USAFL webinar page. So you can go back and listen or share with your club and teammates, and anybody you think that should be a part of this program, please share with them as well. Our next webinar is going to be next week, and that's going to be the Freedom webinar. So that'll be Tuesday, a week from now, October 6th, and you can find all those details on our webinar page as well. And just thanks for joining us tonight, everybody, and please stay safe and good night.